Welcome back, happy hookers, and welcome to episode 2 of How to Crochet for Absolute Beginners. So a quick recap, if you didn't see last week's episode, I'll pop a link above. We learned how to hold the hook and the yarn, how to make a slip knot, how to chain, and how to create the smallest stitch in the crochet family, the single crochet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at a taller stitch called the double crochet. And the single and the double are two of the most common stitches. So once you've mastered this, you should be very easily able to make yourself your first granny square, which is actually going to be the homework at the end of this lesson. So what I have here is I have a swatch. This is a chain of 11, which then gave me 10 single crochets, because remember we missed that first one. And what we're going to introduce is using stitch markers to help us keep count, and equally a hair grip, which are really handy, and you should always have some of those lying around, because let's face it, they always go missing, don't they? So to make the double crochet, we're going to need to create the height. And can you remember in the first episode we talked about the turning chains, and the turning chains in this style of crochet are not to replace stitches, they're simply to get the height up and to allow us to be able to crochet into this first stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crochet 2 chains, 1, 2. So we're yarning over and we're pulling our yarn through the loop on a hook. So we've got our first stitch here, and I'll take that out so we can see. Got our first stitch here, and we've got our 2 chains. So I'll pop that back in, and we're going to turn our work. So it doesn't matter if you turn it this way or this way. It really doesn't matter, just so long as you can nicely identify the first stitch along. So the easiest way to think about it is to count your loop, count the first one here, the second one here, and the third one here. Equally, we can take a look here at the rows of stitches, and we can identify, if we take a look, that this is our very first stitch in the row, and we're going to double crochet into that. So the double crochet is very similar. Oh, can you hear those crows cawing out of my window? So it's very similar to the single crochet, but it's got a couple of extra stages. So what we're going to do for this one is we're actually going to yarn over before we insert our hook. With the single crochet, we just insert our hook straight into the work. However, for this one, we're going to wrap our yarn around, giving ourselves 2 loops on the hook, and then what we're going to do is we're going to insert it into that first stitch. Now, the same way that you would on a single crochet, you insert, yarn over and pull back through. That's something you'll do on every stitch. You'll always insert your hook into your work, yarn over and pull back through. But this time what it's given us is it's given us 3 loops on a hook. Now with the single crochet, if you recall, it was simply a case of yarning over and pulling through the 2 loops on the hook. We're still going to do that. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through 2 loops on the hook, just the first 2. And then what that's going to do is that's going to leave us with 2 more, because we've got 1 left from the previous and 1 that we've just created. And we're simply going to repeat that. So this is almost the same as the single crochet close. We yarn over and we pull through both loops on a hook, and what we've done there is we've created ourselves a double crochet, which is almost, you might say, double the height of a single crochet. So let's try that one more time. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into the work, yarn over and pull back through, and that's going to give us 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And can you see these stitches? They're quite tall. You should find that there's quite a big gap between them. So we'll go for 1 more. So we yarn over, we insert into the work, we yarn over and we pull back through. 3 loops, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place myself a stitch marker in my first stitch so that I can start to get a feel for where I should be ending, because I don't want to accidentally go into this turning chain, because I'm not using these turning chains as stitches, I'm just using them to get the height. So I know that I've created 3 single crochets, double crochets, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my stitch marker into that first one so that I know on the way back that this is the last stitch that I crochet into. Now these little ring ones are quite handy. It's simply a case of popping it through the place where your crochet hook would go, like this. And once you've got it in, you can give it a little spin and that'll quite nicely sit there. So let's get practicing our double crochet. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, back through, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2, yarn over before we go in, yarn over, pull back through 3, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Now I've got not much yarn left on the ball, and can you remember, I keep saying can you remember, just to recap, give yourself plenty of loose yarn because this is really going to help your tension. So just take a little bit of time to unravel a little bit so you've got plenty available to carry on. Okay, so let's carry on practicing our doubles. Yarn over first, insert, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. And I'm going to get into the practice of counting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that I've got 4 more to go because I know that I've got 10. So I know this is going to be number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. And number 10 is definitely identifiable because when we flip it up, it still looks like a stitch on the top. We've still got those familiar V shapes that we're going into before we get to the end of the round. So we have 10 double crochets. So for our turning chain, now you will find on different patterns, some people will do a chain 3. However, they're usually going to be doing a chain 3 because they're actually replicating a double crochet. They're wanting this chain 3 here, 1, 2, 3, to mimic a double crochet, and that would be the first stitch. However, I find that when you're working in rows, it's best to ignore the turning chains and simply use them to get the height up. So chaining only 2 is going to give you a little bit less baggage at the side. So we're chaining our 2 and we're going to turn, and we're going to remember work out. So we count along 3, 1, 2, 3, or we take a look at the row and we follow the row up, and we can see that this here is the first stitch in the row, because that is one of the biggest things. Oh, and there's a cat hair. Lovely. Come on. Yes, identifying the stitches is one of the biggest things with crocheting, really helping you understand kind of what the fabric is, what the makeup is. So can you see here, we can really stretch out these double crochets, because compared to these singles, which creates a really tight fabric, these doubles create a much looser fabric, and it will be a lot softer and not so stiff. So we're going to practice another row, and we know that this is going to be the last stitch in the round. And we can do the same, we can place a marker here. So let's place our first double crochet in, and then let's place a marker. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert into the first stitch, yarn over and pull back through. We're then going to yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And now that I know that there coming out of my hook is my first stitch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a grip, pop it all the way to the end and spin it round. I'm going to place a grip there, and then I know that will be my last stitch on the way back. So I can continue along my row, yarning over, inserting, yarning over, pulling back through 2 and through 2. So yarn over before, same as the single, but we do this section twice. Yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Again, nothing left here. let's make sure we've given ourselves plenty of loose yarn to really help with our tension. So yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. If you're pulling your yarn and, let's say for example, you've yarned over, you've inserted it into a stitch and you've got to here, and then you're pulling your yarn, this is quite a beginner thing, and then you get back and you think, oh, I can't remember where in my stitch I am. Am I at this point? Am I at the end point? All I would do is take your hook out. Well, there's two things you could do. You could wait until you finish the stitch, but that's not always easy, especially if you've not got a lot. So take it out and start again like that, as long as you're preserving the last hook. And even if you did preserve the last hook, it's not suddenly going to all unravel like knitting would. You should be able to very easily find where that loop is, tighten it all up, and then just start again. So insert 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert. And it's still a good idea to count rather than just relying on stitch markers, just to get yourself into the habit of it, especially if you've made a small sampler. Anything under 20 stitches, counting is definitely something that is going to be okay. If you're doing 100, then there's absolutely no way you want to be counting, and you'll probably have stitch markers kind of in increments. You might have a marker denoting when you're at 20, 40, 60, etc. So you can really make sure that you're keeping to the right number. Okay, so we're at the end, and can you see now? So there's two things you could do. You could take it out and crochet into it, or if you wanted to, you can actually crochet straight into it by going underneath the marker. I wouldn't try and go on top of the marker, because that's quite tricky, but underneath is going to be extremely easy. You might find that easier if you struggle to see where your last stitch is. Alternatively, you can pop it out, pop it down. There we go. We can see we've got our last stitch. We can crochet into that with our last double crochet, and we've got to the end of our second row of double crochets, and there's a better look at the pattern as it's really starting to come along. So I think carry on, do your turning chain of 2, turn yourself around, make sure you're comfortable knowing exactly where you want to be going in for your first stitch, yarning over and inserting, yarning over and pulling back through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2. Again, get used to popping your stitch marker into your very first stitch to help you keep count, and then carrying along, going back and forth, practicing your double crochet. So once you're familiar with your double crochet and you feel comfortable using your doubles, your singles and your chains, the next thing you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to create yourself a granny square. I've got a little one here, which is something which you'll be able to make almost immediately, and the link for that I'll pop up here now, and I'll also pop it down in the description. And I would suggest maybe do 10 or 15 rows of the double, feel comfortable, and then what you're going to do is you're going to have a go at creating this. Here's our doubles. Can we see that they're quite tall stitches? And I'll just demonstrate. There we go, look. And these are chains here. This is where we're chaining in between the stitches. So have a go at this. I'd love to know how you got on, and I'll see you again in episode 3, where we'll be learning how to crochet in the round. So that will take you to the level of being able to start to crochet circular items here, and this is just a circular piece made up of double crochets, so it's just these in a circle. So I'll see you for episode 3. Once again, happy hooking. Thank you ever so much for watching. Please subscribe. I post every Friday, and I will see you soon. Bye.